So we got another book this week.
Oh, this is crap.
So this is Chew Volume 2, International Flavor, by John Layman and Rob Gilroy.
I'm going to tell you my favorite part of this, and then you can just go to 10, and I'll add.
Well, I got to tell you.
This whole...
Oh, the whole... Oh, my God. Yeah, we'll get to that.
But... Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
There's
that was one of the funniest, like, cliffhangers because at the time I was reading it monthly. But, so Volume 2, it picks up issues 6 through 10 are in this volume. And I remember texting you about it because I wanted to know when we were going to bring it back. So I was
Never.
like, I was asking
Sick
you
of it.
if you finished it, and you're like, yeah, it's insane. And I'm like, oh yeah, the Yamapalu stuff is pretty wild. That's what I said, because I am also rereading this with you. And I'm a little bit ahead, so I'm on to, like, I'm a volume ahead of you at this point because we're going to do Volume 3 next week.
We're going to do Volume 3.
So I've been reading it as well, and I just keep being reminded how much I love this series. But we left Volume 1 with Savoy and Tony Chu in different places. So Tony Chu found out that Savoy killed the health inspector, Evan Peters, and they fight, and Savoy bites off a piece of his ear. And that volume ends saying we will meet again, one of us will die, and the other will dine on the other's flesh. Which is such a weird thing, but this is one thing I love about this series.
Yeah.
And you and I are talking about it. You really can't stick it into a genre and put it in one thing, because it's part a buddy cop comedy. It's part.
So there is an ending to this?
Yes. I have every volume, so it ends with 60 issues, and there's a definitive ending. There is a sequel series.
Here's my
but
only.
there's only like 20.
Here's
issues
my
in it.
only issue with the issue.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that the art is good, but it's very stylized.
It's like an Adult Swim show, is what I think it is.
Keith Giffen is one of the greatest writers, plotters for DC ever. But his art style is really, really hard to get used to. And this one to me is as well. I'm still not... I still don't really... There's still... I just have not fallen in love with it yet. My favorite thing about this book... I'm going to tell you a lot of things I like about it. At one point in the first issue, it's revealed that he maybe has to eat shit. And they show a steaming pile of shit in the foreground. And he's like, no. But on the cover of this collected work, and I think maybe it was a cover of one of the issues, the island is stylized.
It looks like a pile of shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the middle is the what is it? The governor.
Yeah, the governor of Yamapalu.
In the middle of
Yamapalu.
the stinky whatever is the governor, and so it's kind of like, okay, that's I do appreciate that the guy knows how. It's just for some reason.
Well, it is. It is very stylized.
Yes,
it is something to get used to.
That is honestly what has prevented me from really getting into the book.
I promise you, though, you stick it out. The series is
I've heard
great.
that before. I'm just saying, no, but
so this is also the introduction of it in issue. Again, I was reading this monthly when it was coming out, so I was like, oh shit. They brought back John Colby because John Colby was his partner in the original book. He gets a fucking meat cleaver to the side of his face in the first issue, but he comes back with a cyborg face because he was a part of the the FDA's cybernetic program, which is fucking ridiculous.
Did you ever see the South Park where they showed how Family Guy came up with its plots and whatnot with the manatees? Do you remember that? It was the Cartoon Wars.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is one thing I do like about this series, but it's also very hard to get used to and get into for me at least, because whether I like it or not, I am kind of a sucker for mostly formulaic stuff, comic book, superhero, whatever. I am very mainstream. So when it comes to like, whatever, and I want to get better about, but when it comes to this, you start off with this thing, and then they're like, okay, how do we make this more batshit insane than even the most batshit insane somebody could come up with? Like, like last issue or last book, they definitively say that there's no such thing as vampires. They do. They say it, and then they come up with it again this fucking book. And they show how this fucked up serial killer dude decides to make himself look like a Dracula, and then he also has to bite his like victims and shit.
So this whole
it's just fucking outrageous, crazy.
I promise you, this all will make sense if you.
And don't even get me started about the guy who doesn't talk, except for through his food.
Layman is fucking playing the long game, buddy. You just got to stick with me.
I don't like long games.
So issue 6 ends with Tony taking a sip of some soup where they're doing a raid. D-Bear makes a return. We find out he's an FDA informant. He'll also play a factor in the next volume. So Tony takes this bite of the soup because they're trying to see if it's chicken, and he goes, I don't think it's chicken because it smells like chicken soup. They think it's chicken soup, but it's a fruit. And this whole trade, this whole arc is explaining the weird-looking fruit that was at the end, that was in the previous issues, where it was like this random fruit in the background, and we're finding where Amelia is going. Like, why is she after this fruit thing? So then we also see the issue, chapter 2 of this, which would be issue number 7, is just the big boobs and the rat and stuff like. But it's also the USDA, and that's what I love about this series. Rather than be the CIA, the FBI, all that traditional shit, it's the FDA and the USDA and like NASA and like all this other stuff. There's all these other things to it. And again, I understand it's a lot, but when you know, like for me, I know where the story's going. So the more I reread this, the more it makes sense to me. So they also find out about Colby. Also, I love this scene. The next issue starts with a cold open where Colby is trying to buy some eggs off the street, so it's like a drug dealer, but he's got a bunch of eggs in his jacket, which is funny. And he tries to scare him off with his badge, and then they all crack, and then he finds one that is a hard-boiled egg. And he takes a bite, and he's like, there's something going on in the Arctic, and that was tied back to the previous issue, or they thought there was something in the Arctic. Something did show up. They find the Russian girls from the last volume. When I do explain it, I do understand where you're coming from because it is kind of batshit insane. So then we find out that Tony is following a lead to Yamapalu, which is where the fruit is grown. This is also where he runs into USDA agent who has a like cyborg rat.
This is where you lose me.
Lindsay Wu.
This is where you lose me. Let's put her on the cover. Let's give her a whole backstory and then fucking kill her.
That's awesome.
That's stupid. I'm sorry.
How else you got to build up? You got to build up the.
You wasted an issue of my time.
But you got to build up. Oh my gosh, dude! It all makes sense. You have to build up the vampire dude first. So yeah, it shows that she's this USDA agent. She's also following some leads in Yamapalu.
And why the fuck is his brother there? I mean, I get it,
because his brother is gonna be the chef. His brother gets a job in Yamapalu.
I know!
To make really good food with this fruit that tastes like chicken. It's a Gladysberry, I think is what it's called. Also, Caesar shows up, who, if you remember, Caesar...
Galisberry, yeah.
Caesar is with Savoy. Or wait.
No, he's with... See, you don't even fucking know.
No, he's with Montero at this point. I think I may have spoiled something later on, but all right. So Tony's going in the elevator, and then Lindsay Wu shows up in a sexy dress and says, "Hold the elevator," and puts her leg up and has her heel into the elevator. I just love it because it's such a like silly here's what I love about this angle, because she has her foot on his throat up against the side of the elevator. It's just, I love it because it's obviously like making fun of like that hokey like secret agent thing. Like she just has to do it because she's a secret agent. The best joke in the trade, in my opinion, is the elevator shot where it's 4 panels and the first 2 panels are just the elevator doors. It says ding, and then it just says her, take the stairs, and then the door shuts and they just leave. I guess it's the best joke of the whole book. So they fight and they decide, hey, we're on the same team. We're trying to figure this shit out with this Gladys Berry stuff and this governor. Let's meet up later. Okay, let's meet up. They agree to that. And then Tony feels like he gets stiffed by her because she doesn't show up. And then we find out in a flashback that she was killed by the vampire. And he takes a bite of her rat because the vampire is a Sybopath. Give up, man. If you don't want to read it, we don't need to read it. No. It's fine. You hate the book.
Look, every issue is like, here's 17 new characters. Is all. I like the overall arc. I like that. Here's why I'm not giving up. Is because I don't read books like this, and books like this I think need to exist. I do. And it's not. I don't hate it. It's just thick as fuck. Do you remember Dune?
It's very layered.
Do you remember Dune?
Yeah.
I would expect if you and I decided to review that book and I started reading it along the same time as you, I would get through it a lot faster. I've read it before. I could skip around a little bit. Yeah. But you having to read like even having seen the movie, because I saw the David Lynch, which explains most. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, I do want to make sure that I give this its due at the very least. I do think we should read the whole thing.
It's 60 issues.
When we're done, you're going to fucking watch season 1 of The Wire. I swear to God.
I'll shake with you now. You
got it right there.
There it is.
No, and again, I'm not. I don't want to denigrate the book.
I'll get through the rest of this. I'll break down the rest of this. So,
but I like the idea that there is no such thing as vampires. You know, but like, here's why. Why you would think that though?
Yeah. Well, and I this is what I found out about myself is we talk about like you're the Marvel guy,
super great guy.
You're the Marvel guy. I'm the DC guy or whatever. But honestly, I feel like I'm more the indie guy because most of my books are indie books, or things like Chew, or things like God Country, or Sex Criminals.
The most indie I get is like Image, which is not that indie anymore.
No, well, Image is indie because it's still creator owned.
Right.
No, and those are Image books. But like, I'm just saying, like, I tend to buy books like this and books like that because they're so fucking unique, and I think that this series, it you know. You and I were kind of talking about this too off the air. It was like sometimes there's just a book that just clicks with you, and there's just something like it just pulls you in. And this series hooked me a long time ago.
You're a braver soul than I. Like when we go to Jay's or when we go to Mayhem and they have the clearance section.
Because I like that it pushed. Yeah.
When we go to the clearance section, you know, you and I go there and I look honestly for all the Marvel shit, because that's what I know, and I know it's going to be cheap, and I know I'll be able to at least get into it, right? I don't want to try something even though it's cheap because I don't know it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with the characters that I know and love, whatever. You go in and you're like, I'm going to try this because it's like $4. You know what I mean? And whether you like it or not, I only spent $4. It's a different mindset when we go in there. Just a little bit.
I've just always been.
I'm scared to try new shit.
I'm always very adventurous, especially with comics, because
you think you're better than me?
And we'll talk about it because we're gonna take a little break, so we're gonna get to finish volume 3, which will get us to issue 15, which will get us a quarter of the way through it. We'll take a little break, and then we're gonna do God Country, which I recently bought and read because I've been trying to read that for years. I do go out of my way to buy those books and buy books like this because I feel like, for me, it really pushes the medium in interesting ways, in different ways. I also felt that way when I was reading, because I read a lot of The Walking Dead at the time when it was coming out. And I think a lot of those, there's a lot of Image books that really push. There's another miniseries.
Well, Dark Horse did that for me back in the day.
Yeah. There's another
That's where they started Madman.
There's another miniseries I need to find. That's called Witch Doctor. It's like a miniseries. It was an Image miniseries. I need to find it. I really like that. And that's another book that was so weird and out there. And I like books like this. So to wrap up what we were talking about, most of the third issue of the trade is Tony is following a lead after he was in jail. He punched these guys in the jail a few times so he can get his blood to lick off his hand. Again, I love that this dude made a whole comic book series that is a superhero book, but his superhero or his superpowers are eating food. So he shows up on the lead and finds out there's a chicken here, but it's not just any chicken. This is the first time we see Pollo. And Pollo is this fighting chicken. And he's amazing. And you're going to find out more in the next trade why he's so great. He's great in this too. So they go, and then the guys that have Pollo have a fight with the local sheriff and Tony Chu. They fight, and then Pollo. I think Pollo gets out, right? No.
Well, no, he says go ahead and kill him.
Oh, my
he's
earpiece, the earpiece,
which is it's a
Tony's
callback
fake ear
to the very first, like one of the first pages of the book. Which is where he's complaining because he's like, hey, man, I'm Asian. I'm not, white dude.
So it's a different shade of, yeah.
So it's called back to that. And then we find out that the local sheriff was scamming Chu the whole time.
Yeah, because he was just he knew that he would lead him to Pollo so he could take Pollo and run off and have Pollo more cockfights because he's got a fucking he's this rooster with a luchador mask, and I'm telling you, when you keep up with this series, you're gonna fall in love with Pollo.
As another writer and creator, I do have to give big props. Pollo in Spanish, Pollo, is chicken, and he has made this character's name Pollo, Poyo, which is the name of the chicken. So as a creator, I big hats off because that's the kind of clever shit that I love.
So the issue ends with Tony taking a bite of the
Gallus berry,
and then he sees the outer space. So we find out that this is not of our world.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about that. There's some things that confuse me in this book.
Yeah,
Come on, man!
It'll all make sense.
What the fuck?
It makes sense eventually.
Didn't we see that splash page in the last book, and when was that?
That was the first time. That was the first time he did it. It was the first issue.
First time he ate anything?
First time we saw it as a reader, yeah. So then we cut to Amelia in the next issue. She is typing away, and that's where we see the senator. And he talks about how he wants her to keep eating this and eating different dishes created by Tony's brother so she could write about it and get people to come there. And it's all about tourism because of this thing. So then it was like Colby kept covering for Tony when he's like, I'm in Yamapalu. And so all these disgusting cases come in.
Yeah.
And Appleby keeps trying to assign him to it. It's great. And then we get an autopsy for the Russian girl that was in the previous issue that was killed by the vampire that fought the vampire. And then John is like, hey, man, I'm telling you got to come back here. Fucking Appleby's going crazy. And then... then they find out, they have 2 bite marks on their neck. Is it the vampire? It's the vampire. So then Tony's in the morgue of all the dead bodies left by the vampire, so he keeps chomping away on these dead bodies to go after the vampire. And then he also finds out Amelia's on the island as well, so then he talks to the receptionist at the sheriff's office. She gets him some clothes, gets him into the base, and he goes like all his gear and begins an assault. And then we find out about the great Fantazaros. He's a Sibyl, whatever. You get a sensation that he makes art with his food or some shit. So So it's described as mute since birth. Fantauros communicates solely through his cooking, and Fantauros is a great communicator. A scholar in classes, he was translated the complete works of Shakespeare into cuisine. So every time you eat it, you're like, oh, man, it's ham.
Well, that's why she freaks out, because he made it so that she would freak out.
Right. And scare her away.
Yes. He's
trying to get everybody. He wants to get off the island,
right,
too.
because you learn
that the governor is...
Pick up the pace a little bit.
Jesus. The governor is holding him and a bunch of others.
I'm actually just trying to prove to you that I read it.
Including Tony's brother. He's keeping all of these great chefs hostage to cook these Gladysberry menus for Amelia. And Tony begins his assault. He gets Amelia out, but then we also find out there's a whole bunch of other shit going on. There's fire at the camp and explosions, and then there's a sniper rifle. But my favorite is sniper rifle. I got Agent Chew in my sights. Take the shot. Shites. In my sights. Take the shot. And then the caption is cliffhanger. But
playoffs.
The end of this issue is John Colby in bed with Captain Appleby, fucking Appleby, because that's his only way he can get him off of Tony's back. Oh, the last issue of this trade I love because it's Montero who has the fake chicken. He talks about his new product, which is the Tony called it a frickin'. What did he call it? A chode? Not a chode. A chog. He calls him chog, where he talks about how he genetically spliced chickens and frogs, so it's an ethical way to eat this meat. That isn't chicken, it's frog. But it tastes like chicken because I crossbred it. And Caesar's like, no, don't do that. And then we also find out that he's trying to tell Montero, like, hey, by the way, that dude in Yamapalu, there's some shit going down, and I should look into it. So he does. So the guys that got Pollo taken from him, they're coming to fight him. And they're like, for Pollo! For Pollo! They're all fighting again. I'm like, I love it. I love that they're doing this for a fucking rooster. So they're having an assault, but at the same time that's happening, the vampire's there, and he's eating people as they're dying because he's killing them and eating them. And then Tony's still there. He's got to go back to the fight. But then we see Caesar, and he's got his sights set on Tony. Is he going to shoot him? No, he misses. On purpose. We'll get to that in the next volume. And then Tony's like, get down. And they have a moment of awkwardness because he still has the hot
because he wants to do her.
And he's like, she's like, what are you going to do? He's like, I got to go back. I got to get my brother. Or what happened to your brother? Oh, by the way, this one too. What happened to your brother? I broke his jaw. So he'd shut the fuck up.
Yeah. His brother's kind of a douche.
I love it. And the governor's like, you got to get me out of here. And the security are like, no, fuck that. We're getting out of here. This place is burning down. And then, oh my God. I forgot about this shot. And I cackled when I was reading this again. So the vampire's there with the chef, and he's taking the chef. And the governor or the senator or whatever, he's like, hey, no, you can't do that. And he's like, oh, I'm going to fucking take him. And then Tony breaks in and says, sheath the fangs, motherfucker. And he has a gun, but then he also has another gun with holy water in it. And the vampire's like, holy water? And he's like, hey, man. He said there's no such thing as vampires, but just in case. So they have a confrontation, and essentially the vampire just walks out with the chef, says this is over. Tony doesn't do anything. Doesn't he? Oh, yeah, he gets his gun stolen, I think, right? Yeah, he gets hit by the governor, loses his gun, he takes his gun, he puts it on him, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then the vampire leaves, and the governor kills himself. And then Tony sees everything about the Gladysberry and all the things about Yamapalu. And then we cut to the vampire who eats the chef. Because there's no such thing as vampires, Tyler. And then eventually Tony ends up at his table, back at his desk. He's back. Amelia's back. And the Gladysberry is growing in her personal garden. And that is Chew. Volume 2, International Flavor. What'd you think, Tyler?
It was dense.
I'll eat your ass.
That's how I feel about it. Guess what? It's only gonna get denser because the
Why?
cliffhanger.
Why? What is the fucking point? Why?
But Tyler, it pays off so well. It pays off. I trust you. I trust me. I trust me. I don't know.
Trust me too. Off panel, off topic with Jake and Tyler.